Hello, welcome to the Analyst Inside Cricket with me, Simon Hughes.
And I'm Simon Mann.
Now, Simon, think about this. We've now had something like 14 hours of uninterrupted Test cricket being played across three venues. We started at 10 p.m. last night, English time, and we're now midday on the 6th of December. And in that time, at three venues, 30 wickets have fallen. So 15 in Wellington, 11 in Adelaide in the Australia-India Test match, a feisty competition going on there, and then 4 in the Sri Lanka-South Africa encounter. So it's sort of Test cricket on fast forward in a way, isn't it?
Well, it's been dramatic and exciting, and you've got to keep your eyes on it, really, especially events in Wellington. But good comeback from Australia today on the first day. I mean, there were a lot of Australian sort of, watchers, perhaps commentators, who were saying, "Oh, is this the end of an era? Is this team falling apart? Does it need revamping?" Well, they didn't revamp it, although they brought in Boland for Hazelwood, and they've had an excellent day. And you could argue that they're in a potentially winning position already against India. But okay, we'll just put that on hold because India are good enough to fight back. But a great day for Australia, and an excellent day for England ultimately as well. It didn't look like it, did it? 43 for 4 England after being put into bat in Wellington. But what an innings from Harry Brook. I think he thinks it's his best Test innings so far, and I think you definitely think it is.
Well, I definitely do, yeah. I think it's not only his best Test innings, but I think actually it's up there with someone like Kevin Pietersen's 186 in Mumbai in 2012 for its drama, its panache, its outrageousness, taking on the bowlers in quite bowler-friendly conditions, and the places he hit the ball without the luck that he enjoyed it in Christchurch. So it was a quite extraordinary innings. We'll look into it in a bit more detail shortly. And as you say, I think Australia had a good day, 6 for 1 in reply to bowling India out for 180. So we'll talk about that as well. I mean, overall, is this the blueprint that we want for Test cricket in the future? 3 games going on at the same time and all having a bearing on the World Test Championship. Maybe it is the way forward to have those sort of windows of Test cricket during the year. I think that's certainly an area of discussion. By the way, just talking about great Test cricket, we have started this premium side. I've mentioned it before. It's called the Analyst Plus, and it's on Patreon. And on that site today, we have the first episode of what we're calling Headhunters, which is the 74-5, that really brutal series between England and Australia. Thompson and Lilly terrorising the England batsmen with no helmets, no sort of serious protection. It was a really aggressive, brutal series, one of the greatest series there's ever been, if you're an Australian anyway. And the first episode of that series, hearing from some of the protagonists, is on our premium site, patreon.com/theanalyst25. I'll talk about it and you'll hear a clip from that series later. But reverting to today and England in New Zealand, in Wellington, as you say, starting terribly, actually. And, I mean, what was Zach Crawley doing? I'm sorry. I mean, it was... I thought his innings was a desperate attempt, a bit like Dan Lawrence, the sort of the flailing against the dying of the light or something. But Dan Lawrence at the Oval last summer, his last opportunity to open for England. And Zach Crawley today, I'm not saying it's the last opportunity he has to open for England, but it was an extraordinarily inept attempt to try and get some runs on the board, I thought.
But what was he trying to do? Let's have a look at it. Let's just break it down. So he was looking to play ultra aggressively. He took 10 off Tim Southey's first over. He actually was dismissed by a really good ball, I thought, that just came back a fraction from Matt Henry. But in between, there was there was a lot of frantic batting, wasn't there? And a man who probably was just trying to hit his way to a score and thought, well, look, it's not worked for me against New Zealand before. There's probably going to be a good ball around the corner. Well, he's right about that because there was a good ball around the corner. Let's play some shots. Let me try and put the pressure back on the bowlers. But it I don't know, it just looked a bit too desperate, didn't it? I mean, the point about it is you can be aggressive, as Harry Brooks showed later, but there has to be sort of a measure of control as well. You have to be judicious, and Zach Crawley today, it looked the innings of a sort of frantic mind, really.
I think that's a very good way of putting it, and I just think that there's nothing wrong with being aggressive against the new ball, but that was, it was sort of frenetic and kind of premeditated and at times wild. I mean, there was one ball, he went down the wicket and tried to heave Matt Henry across the line over deep mid wicket as if he's hitting, at the death in a T20 game. And I think, yeah, he did get a good ball. By the way, I mean, he did hit one incredible shot. He hit a straight six off the first over of the match, straight back over Tim Southey's head. I don't think that's ever been done before in a test match. And it was an amazing shot, but he felt like he was on borrowed time. And actually, you're right that he did get a good ball to get out. But the problem Crawley has is he doesn't utilise his major strength, which is his height. Therefore, he's got long legs. Therefore, he can actually get quite forward to the ball, but he never bends his front knee. He never manages to flex that knee in the drive or the defensive shot. So he's poking out in front of himself with the bat and leaving a big gap because his weight hasn't transferred onto the front foot properly. And if he had moved his knee, his left knee, if he'd flexed his left knee in that defensive shot, he would have been hit on the pad rather than bowled. Now, okay, you might have been given out LBW. He probably would have been, but at least that gives him more chance. He's just playing with no defence in a way, poking at balls which are swinging away outside off stump, poking at balls which are nipping back. I mean, he's a sort of walking wicket at the moment. And I feel sorry for him because he's obviously got talent, but at the moment it's not allied to any technique or any clear thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I think New Zealand fancy themselves against him, don't they? And he just looks a player a bit all at sea at the moment. And things can turn around. We've kind of seen it from him before, haven't we? So
not quite this bad.
Not quite this bad, but I think we've got to the stage with him where people sort of kind of shrug a bit and say, well, there've been times in the past where it's worked and he's made runs and he's looked good, and therefore we know that England management are patient with him. But anyway, it's one of those we talked about last time. It's one of those where, okay, it doesn't look good, and if it continues into next summer, then they might have to make a decision. But I don't think they're inclined to make a decision on him at the moment. I don't think so anyway. But he does look a bit all at sea. He's got 3 more innings potentially to try to gain some confidence, score some runs, restore and the confidence of those outside looking in. But it didn't look great today.
Isn't it funny, actually? He's averaging 9 in New Zealand, and I don't know what he's averaging in Australia, but the Aussies rate him, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, the innings he's played in Australia in particular, and of course that big 100 he played against Australia at Old Trafford 2023 as well, the Aussies think he's a great player, and they really like his approach. The New Zealanders think he's absolute rubbish because he's averaging 9 against them.
Yeah, he played a nice innings in Sydney on the last tour and in the final test match. Played really sweetly that day, and then really cashed in at Old Trafford, his best test innings so far, and set up a potential England victory, but it was ruined by the weather. But anyway, so
talking of rubbish, what do you think Jeffrey makes of watching Zach? If he's watching Zach Crawley, he's probably not. He's probably making sure he doesn't watch it actually, because it would make him too angry, I reckon.
Yeah, I think he's probably one of those players that might raise Jeffrey's blood pressure a bit. I think, especially if he was one of his teammates, or he was watching him from the non-striker's end, or he was his captain or something like that. We've kind of been there before with Zach Crawley. What do you do? Shrug and move on? Well, they'll shrug and move on for a bit longer, but whether it will go on and on and on, shrugging and moving on, I don't know. We'll wait and see on that one. Ducky got one in the channel, nicked one, and New Zealand actually caught a catch. Latham taking it low down, and New Zealand actually caught pretty well today. Tom Latham after the last game was saying, well, I don't think we have to work on it. It was kind of one of those matches, but they did catch well today. There was just one drop catch by Phillips in the gully. He catches the ones that are like miles away from him and drops the ones that are straight at him. So he put one down today. It didn't cost him too much. Bryden Cast was the player to benefit only for a short while. So out early, Duckett and Crawley, and then Joe Root came in. I didn't think that was a great shot either. It just looked a bit un-Joe Root-like. He's a bit loose. Ball just bounced a bit more outside the off stump. He sort of played a sort of flick cut at it, and another fine catch. Actually, Darryl Mitchell at slip took an excellent catch away to his right hand side. So England in big problems early on. Is that fair with Joe Root's dismissal, do you think?
Yeah. No, I think so. I mean, that's the shot he plays a lot, isn't it? The one it's a sort of steer, really. It's a steer through the gully, third slip sort of region, and he gets a lot of runs. He gets probably I don't know, 40% of his runs down there to third man area. But it probably wasn't the greatest shot to play at that stage of the game because there was a bit of extra bounce and movement, and so it wasn't a percentage shot. It was a fantastic catch. Yeah, but I agree with you. It demanded a leave, that particular ball at that stage, and funnily enough, we're looking at two such contrasting Test matches going on, where England, the leave is almost redundant. Certainly in the case of people like Ben Duckett, although I know he left a couple of balls in the Christchurch Test match, but he's not inclined to leave too many. And Crawley was certainly not going to leave any, and Brook didn't either. And then in Adelaide, you got Labuschagne and McSweeney batting against the Indian fast bowlers under lights with the pink ball, leaving about 50% of the deliveries. And actually, there was a debate on the commentary between Harsha Bhogle and Mark Wall about the value of the leave, and Harsha Bhogle arguing that batsmen should be earning some kind of reward for good leaves. And Mark Wall saying, well, you don't make any runs if you leave the ball. So, and you can see the English philosophy is sort of, I think, particularly when pitches are a bit spicy, it is, right, we're just going to play shots here. And, good luck to us. I mean, I think Brook in particular has this philosophy. It's the old adage, isn't it? Flash, if you're going to flash hard. I mean, Brook is a bit more sophisticated than that, but he certainly goes at the ball hard, so it takes some catching. And as proved in the last test, he was dropped 5 times. Some of those drops were, catches that should have easily been taken, but you can see the contrast in the English philosophy. I mean, I'm just looking at my screen. Labuschagne 20 from 67 balls, and actually I think he took about 20 balls to get off the mark today. Whereas after 67 balls of Harry Brook's innings, he's probably got about 80. I mean, it's amazing to see the contrast, and in a way, both are admirable.
Yeah. So on the root dismissal, I think there's an indication there with that Joe Root dismissal that there is some, there were some bounce in this pitch, and that was the thing that helped the bowlers during the day, that kept them in the game. It also helped the batters as well because it encouraged them to play lots of shots. But as we'll see later on, as we'll discuss later on, the extra bounce brought England back into it with their bowlers later. Jacob Bethel at number 3. You said he shouldn't bat at number 3. I actually thought he looked really assured today. I thought he could get in and score some runs. I felt there were runs in the pitch, if he could get over the new ball. And then he swung it one down the leg side. It was one of those kind of unfortunate dismissals. Really gloved it through. Nathan Smith around the wicket. He went to pull it. They just put the man back as well, and he went for the pull shot and he gloved it through to Blundell, who held on. Bethel out for 16. Played 1 or 2 nice shots. Looked assured, but again in the first innings, not able to go on and make anything, make a serious contribution.
Yeah, I like the look of him. I agree with you. I'm still not convinced that the right position is number 3, but I can see him becoming a number 3 eventually. I think he's going to stay there for the moment, obviously. But I thought he played really nicely, actually. He played sound defence. He played the ball late. He hit a couple of really nice drives down the ground. I think he was a bit unlucky to get out. It was a ball that probably merited the pull shot, but it didn't bounce all that much, and it just got a sort of glove through to the keeper. Quite a good catch down the leg side. So yeah, overall, actually, I thought I agree. I thought he looked good. He's certainly more composed coming in at number 3 than Ollie Pope, and Ollie Pope is benefiting from that by coming in down the order where the ball is doing a little bit less. And again, he played an excellent innings.
Yeah, he does look. I mean, you cannot help draw the conclusion, and as you're watching him, you feel he just looks a player who is at home at number 5, number 6, don't you? In the middle order, Ollie Pope. I mean, he's 2 innings now. He's played fluently, he's played nicely. He's produced excellent partnerships with Harry Brook. They've got England back into the first Test match and right back into the second Test match as well. It was actually a bit of a surprise when he got out, to be honest. I thought it was a lovely innings from Ollie Pope, driving nicely, the cut, the uppercut, and he didn't look in too many problems, despite the fact England were 43 for 4. I mean, what a partnership it was. 174 in 27 overs. There were a few scares on the way. I think they're going to be on this surface, aren't there? The ball is moved. There's a grassy surface. There is some banks, so the bowler's rules in the game. And it was the first day, and England were put in, and they were under pressure. But excellent from Pope as well as Brook, really.
And Brook, he's exceeding himself. Undoubtedly, his best at 100, given the conditions and the way he played. And I think he's changing the game in the way that Viv Richards did in the 1980s and early 90s.
That's high praise,
70s and 80s. I just think, it is high praise, but I just think that he's taken the aggressive batting onto another level in the same way as Richards produced those audacious shots where he sort of strolled across outside off and whipped bowlers off the stumps through mid-wicket. And then the other shot that Viv, I thought, was a real pioneer of was the backing away outside the leg stump and hitting bowlers over sort of mid-off. Well, Harry Brook has taken that shot to the next level by coming down the wicket or stepping away to leg against proper 90-mile-an-hour bowlers like Will O'Rourke, and clubbing them, carving them over deep extra cover for 6 when the ball is hitting the stumps, and fairly early in his innings as well. Just extraordinary repertoire. Then he's also able to pull balls which aren't all that short over square leg as well, in the same way as Viv Richards. So I just think his range of shots and his confidence and his bat speed. It's remarkable to watch. Remarkable.
Yeah. There were a couple of 2 stunning shots. One off Henry over extra cover, and one off O'Rourke over extra cover. He did actually try to sort of smack O'Rourke when he was on 99 as well. If you watch it, you probably won't necessarily see it on the highlights, but just before he got his 100, he gave himself some room. He came down the pitch, gave himself some room and tried to crash it through the offside and miscued it. He actually got a little bit lucky and then got his 100 soon afterwards, and what a superb 100 it was. It was chanceless, well, in one sense chanceless. There was a bit of hacking along the way. It wasn't all right out of the middle of the bat. There were a couple that he got a bit lucky with. And I suppose you compare that with Zach Crawley, but I suppose the difference is that the Brook always felt more in control. It was far less frantic. It was a bit more calculated. It was a bit more ruthless than Zach Crawley. Zach Crawley was a bit like, chucking mud against the wall, whereas Harry Brook, there was a dead-eyedness to it, almost like like an assassin. But it was stunning to watch. It was high wire cricket again from England, and it worked. It put them right back in the game.
So 8 Test centuries now for Harry Brook. Where does that put him in the rankings of fastest players to 8 Test hundreds? Well, quite an elite list here. Not surprisingly, Don Bradman is top of it. It took him only 19 innings to get 8 Test hundreds. That's absolutely ridiculous. Nobody else can get anywhere near that. Arthur Morris is second in the list, Australian left-hander, 28 innings to get to 8 Test hundreds. George Headley, the Black Bradman, 30. He's number 3 in the list. And then you go down Mike Hussey, Dennis Compton, Viv Richards, as we mentioned earlier. He's 6th on the list with 34 innings to get 800s. And Harry Brook is 9th on that list with 38 innings to get to 8 Test hundreds. So he's in a pretty exalted company there, isn't he?
Yeah, well, he's a class young player. There's no doubt about that. He's not a perfect player. He showed his struggles against spin at times in Pakistan. Of course, didn't go on the last England tour to India. That would have been fascinating to see how he'd got on there in those challenging conditions. But he is a destroyer of... Well, he's a destroyer of pace bowling, isn't he?
And spin as well.
Yeah,
he's done it to spin.
I don't think he's so good against. I don't think he's quite so good against a spinning ball, personally.
Well, he hasn't had as much experience
No.
against it, but obviously people are saying 3 things really about him. One is he hasn't made 100 against India and India. 2, he hasn't yet played in Australia, and 3, he's only made 100 of his 8 in England. Ironically, probably played more tests away from home. But certainly he's a serious talent. That has, I think, marries the Kevin Peterson outrageousness with a sort of Joe Root insatiability and playing the ball late and ability on the offside, which Root obviously is exceptional at. I mean, his ceiling is, as to use a word that England like, is sky high.
How do you get him out? Well, one way is to run him out, or get himself to run himself out. Pope nearly ran him out not long before lunch, actually. Nathan Smith's throw missed the stumps, but in the end, Nathan Smith's throw did not miss the stumps. I mean, it was a really bizarre dismissal, really. He came down the pitch a long way looking for a single, and he was quite rightly sent back. Chris Wokes was with him, and well out. I mean, it was an odd dismissal, really, even barely in the frame. Have a look at it if you get the chance on the highlights on TNT. And from there, England collapsed, didn't they? So they were 43 for 4, then a stand of 174, and then 63 for 6. So they would have been in big peril with that partnership between Brook and Pope. And it was just, the whole day was just high octane, highly charged, exciting cricket. And we didn't even talk about the over rate today. So England bowled out for 280. We'll talk about New Zealand's innings in just a moment, but one of the big talking points in the last few days has been over rates and England being docked 3 Test Championship points like New Zealand, and it's been a theme of England's World Test Championship campaign, the fact that they've lost so many points because of a slow over rate. So today, England bowled out in 54 overs, New Zealand batting for 26 overs, so 80 overs in the day. We were about 8 overs short, for a couple between innings. So, I mean, it's a fantastic day's cricket, 366 runs for 15 wickets, all sorts of talking points, and we are delivering those talking points to you now. But they were denied the crowd about another half an hour's cricket by slow over rate, and it may well transpire that teams will be fined again at the end of this test match if they don't manage to speed up. And Ben Stokes questioning this between test matches, saying, well, the last game finished in 3.5 days, what are they complaining about? We give them high octane cricket, it's fabulous cricket. Why are we being docked Test Championship points? Also making the point that cricket in different parts of the world is played at a different pace because of the conditions. So somewhere like New Zealand or England, you'll like to use more pace because the conditions are in India, or Pakistan, you're going to use more spin, or Sri Lanka, you're going to use more spin because of the pitch conditions demand it. Therefore, there should be sort of different regulations, really, to govern test matches in different parts of the world. What did you make of that before I give my tuppence halfpenny worth?
I mean, certainly the crowd at Wellington can't have complained about the lack of entertainment. That was 360 odd runs and 15 wickets, so it was full on entertainment fare. I mean, I do slightly sympathise with the argument that seam bowling orientated attacks take longer to bowl their overs than spin orientated attacks because of the length of the run-ups. I mean, that's a basic sort of fact, isn't it? I think that England are, they could speed up. They could definitely speed up. Stokes likes to deliberate over the field setting for almost every ball. That's, I think, unnecessary. It's a bit layering it on a bit too thick, actually. And I think bowlers could bowl, walk back to their mark a bit quicker. They could get into their fielding positions a bit quicker. I mean, they do put a lot of intense work into a test match and into a test match day. There's preparation, there's deliberation, there's obviously intense commitment with the ball and in the field. So you sort of feel like the downtime is between overs, between balls, just to sort of calm everything down, and then off you go again. I mean, the intensity of the game is high. Therefore, I suppose you can sort of understand their reluctance to speed everything up even more. But I think they could try harder. I think they could do more. The trouble is that once you've got 2 captains arguing fairly strongly, because Tom Latham backed up Stokes here, and denying them points in the World Test Championship, I think, is too much of a penalty. I agree there should be some kind of penalty, but I think denying people who've put a huge amount of effort into a Test match performance and then losing quite a few points for just a poor over rate is getting the balance wrong. So I sort of see that argument from Stokes and Latham, but I actually do think the teams could do more to speed up the game, and I would like to see a stop clock as they have in T20 in various places, because you do owe the public full entertainment. They're paying going to Lords, you're paying 170 quid for a ticket, and so they do have the right to get a full day's play.
Yeah, there's quite a few things to unpick from that. It seems to me I could totally see Ben Stokes' argument that cricket is played at different paces around the world. But my point, I think, would be, surely it's not that unreasonable to expect to bowl 90 overs in 6.5 hours. So the point being that if you're bowling spin all day in India or in Sri Lanka, that you would probably finish early. The scheduled playing time is actually, or end time is actually half an hour earlier than they play onto. They've got that latitude of an extra half an hour. So you could easily bowl 90 overs in 6 hours, 5 minutes, or whatever, with just a little bit more intent. I was watching the last game actually, and there were times when England would be 2 minutes between overs.
Yeah, and they loiter.
They do.
Loiter,
There's a lot of just hanging around, and actually, it is quite boring just to watch. People just standing around deliberating. I do watch the game sometimes. I think, come on, just get on with it. It is exciting, but you don't actually need to just stop and do all this deliberating. You can get on the game, show a bit more urgency. And the other point, Yoz, is this: that there are rules for the competition. And if you want to be successful in it, you've got to play to those rules. Okay, in the future, if they do change the rules, relax them for games in certain parts of the world, then fine. But you're playing within certain rules for this competition. Presumably, you want to win it. It'd be a bit like Manchester City saying, "Oh, we don't agree with some of the rules, that govern the Premier League. Therefore, we're not going to agree to them. We're not going to play to them."
At the end of mind you, they get away with that, don't they? They have been getting away with that for quite a long time. If you look at the fair play rules for spending money and all that. Anyway, that's another point. But
no, hold on, let's go back. That is a separate issue. I mean, on the field, if they say, "Oh, we don't like the rate," sure. Actually, the referee's added on 4 minutes. We don't agree with that. We think there should be an extra 8 minutes. So we're going to play an extra 4 minutes. But actually, the other team has walked off at the end because the referee's blown the final whistle. That's what I mean. The financial thing is separate. Okay, let that sort itself out. But I'm talking about the regulations governing the actual match day or the competition or whatever. And so England and all the other teams have to play to the rules of the competition. And if they demand you bowl a certain number of overs in the day or whatever it is over the course of a test match, then you have to try to fit in with that if you want to be successful. And it seems to me that England are good enough to be successful, and if they just showed a bit more urgency, then yeah, I think they could bowl their overs. And for Ben Stokes to say, "Oh, the rules are confusing" or whatever, it's not. I mean, it's not that confusing. You can just. There are lots of regulations, rules, and laws in cricket. You have to get your head around them. You have to understand them, don't you, to make the game work for your team. So I have some sympathy, but I don't think he's got much of a defence at the moment.
No.
I can understand lobbying the ICC to change them. Okay, fair enough. If they want to change the regulations, that's fair enough. But for this competition, they're being played under specific rules and regs, and you have to try to fit in with them to be successful.
Maybe that's why the ICC haven't replied to him, because he asked for a consultation with them, I think, a year ago during the Ashes of 2023, and they still haven't replied properly. So he's sort of quite irate about that and sort of making a stance as a result. But I think England and all the teams have to think about this, because we talk all the time about how to sustain Test cricket for the next generation, and one of the ways of doing that is to make sure the game is speeded up on the field, not necessarily by faster run rates, but just by more proactivity and more energy, to make the game look a bit faster, rather than people sort of loitering around and sort of the game kind of grinding to a halt quite often. That you have to keep the momentum up to keep the game attractive to future generations.
Yeah, and look, the way England play the game is attractive. Let's face it. So I think that's part of Ben Stokes' argument, and you can have a bit of sympathy with that, because it is exciting to watch. I suppose what it is, people get a bit greedy. They're like, well, let's give me all the cricket. If Bath played against Northampton in the Gallagher Premiership, whatever, and it was 40-all with 70 minutes left, and there were a lot of quite high-scoring games. You wouldn't say, all right, well, you've had 8 tries each now. We're going to call the game off, not play the last 10 minutes because you've had your excitement already. I think it's kind of that point really. And if you says about tickets on the day, so if you pay for your ticket on the day, you want the maximum entertainment probably anyway. Some people say, well, I don't mind, I drift off half an hour before anyway to catch my train home or something like that. I've had enough fun, I've met all my friends, I've seen some exciting cricket, I'll head off. But there, plenty of people stay and want their feel really.
Well, if you stayed on at Wellington, you'd have certainly got some good entertainment in the last couple of hours, because England's bowlers were really actually on top, weren't they? I mean, an early wicket for Gus Atkinson, getting Devon Conway out, a good catch by Harry Brook at second slip, and then a really good contest between Chris Wokes, a really good contest between Bryden Carse and Kane Williamson. The absolute master with the bat, using his bat like a wand almost. I mean, just magicking the ball through the covers without the sort of power and expression of Harry Brook, but still the same effect in many ways. And then Bryden Carse coming with him with that sort of fire and brimstone, but also good control. And that was a great contest, which actually Carse won in the end.
Yes, it was mesmeric, that contest between Carse and Williamson. I think we got a hint of it earlier with O'Rourke bowling. I mean, he's a good young prospect, isn't he, O'Rourke? I was thinking actually as I was watching it. We've made this programme about the 74-5 Ashes series, and I was thinking, I wonder how Tomo would have bowled on this pitch today with the greenness in it and the bounce. I think it would have been hard to handle. Of course, although the players these days do have helmets, I think that's one of the big things that we've pointed out. Going back 50 years, the players did not have helmets, and Tomo was, when he got it right, he was a real handful. And I thought O'Rourke was, a handful at times today, and certainly Carse. It looked like a different game when Carse was bowling. The contest with him and Williamson was fascinating because he got Williamson out in inverted commas. It was an absolutely beautiful delivery that hit the top of off stump. Carse was leaping around celebrating, and then you saw the shot of the umpire just poised over the crease. Oh, is it going to be a no ball? Yes, and it was so tight as well, wasn't it? His back foot was on, like, so close to being behind the line, but nothing of his boot looked behind the line. So it was a no ball, but it wasn't like one of the, some no balls are really obvious, aren't they? But this one was a really tight one. You thought, well, is that the big let off that New Zealand want? They were one down at the time. There would have been two down. He escaped. England began to work their way through, and then Carse got rid of Williamson with another fine delivery, and this time his foot was behind the line. So it was great cricket. It was thrilling cricket, and then it continued as well because Mitchell came in, and there was a bit of chat, wasn't there, between Mitchell and Carse. I don't know what was being said in the middle, but Carse was offering his thoughts, and Mitchell was offering his thoughts as well. And then very soon afterwards, the short ball down the leg side, and it kind of gloved down the leg side. And people say, well, these are a bit of a strangle, but I actually felt with a quick bowler like Carse bounding in and pounding it into the pitch, actually they are legitimate dismissals, aren't they, where they're in at your body and you sort of fend at it and you glove it through to Ollie Pope. It was thrilling cricket.
I'm glad you said that, actually, because, in fact, Craig McMillan on commentary said, he strangled down the leg side, a classic batsman's reaction. That is a genuine dismissal. The ball banged in short of the length, kind of cut back slightly and tucked up the batsman Mitchell, trying to sort of ride it, maybe play it down to fine leg and keep it down, and it just rushed onto him and bounced a bit more than he expected and gloved him, and a nice catch by Ollie Pope down the leg side. So a totally legitimate wicket, and Carse the star of the day because, well, certainly the latter part of the day, because those two big wickets, and he also took an absolutely stunning catch to get rid of Ravindra as well, a sort of little inside edge onto pad, the ball looped up on the leg side, and Carse, having just bowled an over, came galloping in from short mid-wicket, dived and just about got the ball above the ground, full-length dive, to take a catch from nothing, really. So all round, he's becoming really quite a force, isn't he? A force. Force of nature.
Yeah, he is, and he's a good all-round cricketer, and that catch exemplified that. His bowling showed what he's got, his bowling attributes. His batting, he came in and smashed his first ball for four. I think to me, he looks as though he's batting. Well, I think we know he's batting too low at number 10. England got 3 number 8s in their lineups. It's a bit of in a strange way, it's a bit of a problem for them because they're probably not getting as much potentially out of someone like Bryden Cast as they could do, because he was actually just playing loads of shots at the end there, and I think he's a better player than that, and somewhere on the line he'll make some a significant contribution given time, given some support or whatever, and just freed from having to that feeling of having to smash it at the end. So it's a good all-round package, and actually the wicket that Chris Wokes took, I think, exemplified what we thought about the pitch. There's that extra bounce, so the inside edge that Ravindra got onto his sort of hip area out towards short mid wicket. Again, it's just the bouncy pitch, and I think that's the problem potentially for batters in this game. That there is a ball not quite with your name on it, but the bowlers are always in the game, and you feel as if they're probably always going to be in the game. So 280. Probably more than it would seem on another surface.
Yeah, no, I agree actually, and I mean, if you look at the 2 Test matches that we're focusing on here, the New Zealand-England game and the Australia-India game, in parallel, there were some similarities. In a way, India 180 all out, they lacked the Harry Brook kind of element to take their score to 280, and I think England's 280 was about par for that particular pitch, because there was enough in the pitch, but Harry Brook and obviously Ollie Pope managed to get that good partnership, which India never found in their innings of 180, where Mitchell Starc bowled very full actually and got the 6 wickets. And I thought there was one interesting parallel with the Ashes. The first ball of the game, Starc bowling to Yashasvi Jaiswal, bowls this ball swinging full onto leg stump, and Jaiswal tries to work it away on the leg side, misses it, hit in front of middle and leg and given out LBW. Absolutely dramatic start to the Test match, exactly like Rory Burns at the start of the Ashes in Brisbane 2 or 3 years ago, bowled behind his legs by Mitchell Starc, similar delivery, only Burns got ahead across too far, left-hander, tried to work it to leg and lost his leg stump. But it was almost exactly the same ball, bowled by the same bowler at a left-handed batsman. A brilliant start for Australia, and start with those 6 wickets with quite a lot of very full deliveries, swinging in late to right-handed batsmen, backed up well by Pat Cummins, who found a bit of extra bounce to get a couple of wickets, particularly Rishabh Pant. So Australia doing a good job on the Indian batting. Kohli failing, got one from Starc which lifted and left him and was caught at slip. And Australia, as opposed to New Zealand collapsing to 86 for 5, Australia 86 for 1 by just very measured, very disciplined batting by Labuschagne and his doppelganger McSweeney, who has sort of almost kind of copied everything that Labuschagne has done over his career so far, and they're sort of matching each other block for block and leaf for leaf at the moment.
So far in this Test match, rumours of the death of Australian cricket exaggerated. They were down in their cups, weren't they, after that hammering in the Perth Test match? But I thought at the time, just to see how this plays out. Australia at home, they're still a pretty good side, and they've got every chance, you'd think, from this position of going on and levelling the series. But there's some, we know there's some quality in this Indian team. They can, fight back. Yeah. But I mean, what I thought was interesting was, what was interesting was, of course, the twilight zone. Pink ball under lights. Australia thought, well, are they going to sink here like they did in the first Test match? But in responding to a low score, they did not, did they? They battled it out, and they've only lost the 1 wicket so far. And you think that's the session where you have to make the most of it with the ball. But
no, that's absolutely right.
It's not quite played out in that way today.
No, and it's been, it's partly the discipline of the Australian batsmen. Also, actually, I think the Indians bowled too short generally. They didn't try and pitch the ball up like Starc did and get that bit of extra movement and get the batsman forward driving. They were able to leave a lot of balls which were bouncing over the stumps. And you say under lights, the lights failed about 3 times, actually. Suddenly, thank goodness, the lights didn't suddenly go out when the bowler was about to release the ball. They went out when the bowler was at the end of his mark. and there seemed to be some kind of power cut for a couple of minutes, and then the lights came back on, which actually makes the concentration of Labuschagne and McSweeney more impressive, because in the middle of an over, suddenly total darkness, and then suddenly the light comes on again.
So a couple of intriguing days Test cricket, one in Wellington, one in Adelaide, and pressure on India and pressure on New Zealand. Who's to say they won't necessarily fight back, though? There are possibilities for both sides in the game, but at the moment you would far rather be in England and Australia's position. But we'll see how it pans out on the second day, and we'll be back to talk about it and discuss it and look at the main moments this time tomorrow. Thanks very much for your company. Goodbye for now.
And don't forget our premium site, patreon.com/theanalyst25.